Hello everyone, my name is Andrew and welcome back to Frames of Space. Before we dive into today's episode, I've got something special that I'd like to share with you. Over the past few weeks, I've been thinking a lot about how to make this podcast even better, more engaging, more insightful, more aligned with all the stuff that you might be interested in. And I realized that the best way I could do that is by hearing directly from you, where when I say you, I mean the audience for this podcast. So I've created a listener survey, which is a Google form where you can share any and all of your thoughts, your feelings, and your ideas about this podcast. It is your chance to tell me what you love, what you don't love, and what you'd like to see more of. Now, I'm sure that there are probably some of you that are like, oh, another survey, really? Do I have to fill this out? And I just want to be clear, none of you have to listen to this. I'm sure that if you want, you can just skip ahead a few minutes to when the episode starts if you're just totally, you just can't take this, but please just hear me out. This is not just some generic form. This is genuinely a way for you to have a potentially real impact on the direction of this podcast. And I want all of you to know that I genuinely want to know what resonates with all of you, what platforms you use to listen to this, how long you've been tuning in, and even how you first discovered the show. It means a lot to me. And here's the kicker. As a thank you for taking the time to fill it out, I am offering something pretty unique. Everyone who completes the survey will get the chance to have a free one-on-one video call with me. That's right. You'll get to sit down with me face-to-face or screen-to-screen, I guess, and just talk about whatever is on your mind, whether it is podcast-related or just something you're curious about. This is your opportunity to connect with me directly. And yeah, I'm kind of nervous about how many people might take me up on this offer, so I hope I don't regret this, but I'm also kind of excited. I genuinely want to hear from all of you, and I think that this could be a great way to build a stronger connection with my audience. So if you're interested, I will include the link to the Google form in the show notes. It is pretty quick, it's easy, and it is genuinely your chance to shape the future of this podcast. And plus, who doesn't love the idea of a free one-on-one chat? Yeah, I truly believe that in general, podcasting is a two-way street. It is about me and my ability to share my own thoughts, but I do want to create a space where all of you can feel heard and we can learn and grow and potentially engage with each other and potentially have a virtuous feedback loop in that regard, I guess. So if you are a regular listener of the show, I would highly recommend taking a few minutes, filling it out, and just let me know what's on your mind. Obviously, this is meant for regular listeners. Don't fill this out if this is just the first episode you listen to, or even the second or third. Only listen to this, only fill out the form if you've listened to I would say 5 or more episodes. But yeah, if you are a regular listener of the show, I genuinely can't wait to hear from you. Now let's get onto today's episode. If you've been tuning into this podcast for a while now, you've probably heard me and some of my guests talk about the darker side of social media. Specifically, how it isolates us, how it fuels fear, and how social media and the internet more broadly often activates the panic systems in our brain, making us see danger where there often is not any. And it is a topic we've revisited time and time again for good reason. But today, I want to shift gears a little bit, because in light of the toxicity of online discourse and all of the negativity of modern day news, I want to talk about something that feels like a breath of fresh air in contrast to all of that. Because it's easy to focus on what is wrong, like the toxicity of online discourse or many of the many ways that the world seems to be getting worse. But I think that from time to time, it is just as important to focus on what's right about the world. And I think one of the things that's right about the world is the power of real-life connections. Because let's face it, spending hours on your smartphone scrolling through social media, just getting lost in the endless void of the internet, I'm sure that you know by now that that is far more damaging than any of us could possibly realize. But talking to people in real life, that's a different story. You might be catching up with a friend, having a heart-to-heart with a family member, or even just striking up a conversation with a complete stranger in public. But I think that in general, these interactions are far more beneficial, far less dangerous, and far more worthwhile than most people give them credit for. So I would say that that is the purpose of this episode. It's not about pointing fingers or adding to the doom and gloom of the news cycle. Trust me, there's a lot of that goes around, and I do plan to get back to that in future episodes. But for this week at least, I wanted to offer a bit of a lighthearted reprieve, because it's good to remind people every now and then that despite the chaos of both modern-day politics and the digital world, there is still so much good to be found in the real world. Because here's the truth. As untrustworthy as social media can be, as unreliable as internet discourse often is, and as messy as modern politics may seem, I do genuinely believe that the majority of people you encounter in real life are, on average, far more trustworthy than you might think. And that is something that my guest today wholeheartedly believes in. Oh yeah, speaking of which, let me introduce my guest, because my guest's name is Allie Volpe, and she is a correspondent at Vox. Allie writes extensively about the science of human connection, friendship, conversation, community, and the invisible threads that tie our well-being to the relationships around us. And let me tell you, these connections are vital. After all, loneliness is not just a feeling. It is a state of being that affects us both psychologically and physically. When we are lonely, we feel more tired, more pessimistic, more hopeless, and more unmotivated. And if social media is not the antidote to that loneliness, and spoiler alert, it is most definitely not, then we need to find other avenues to find that sense of community and belonging that we would have initially hoped to find on social media. And that is where real-life interactions come in. As surprising or unorthodox as it may sound, talking to people face-to-face, whether they're friends or even strangers, all of that is a much, much more effective way to build connection and community than anything you'll find online. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. What about the risks? What about the stories that we hear about dangerous strangers or unsafe situations? And those things do occasionally occur, but statistically speaking, they are in the vast minority. Violent crime, for example, has gone way down, and many of the fears that used to dominate our collective consciousness, like violent crime, have diminished over time. And yet, even despite that, social trust, our willingness to trust one another, has also been declining, and that, to me, is a tragedy. Because when you think about it, interacting with people is one of the most rewarding things that we can do. It is how we build relationships, find support, and create a sense of belonging. So the purpose of this episode is to offer all of you quite a bit of encouragement, and a reminder that even in the midst of all the noise and negativity, there is still room for connection. Now here's Allie Volpe. Hope you enjoy. Allie Volpe, thank you so much for taking the time to come onto this podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, how about this? Let's do a little bit of explainer on your background. Like, what's your beat? What do you tend to write about, and what do you tend to enjoy writing about?
Yeah, I mostly write about relationships with a specific focus on friendships, but relationships of all kinds, romantic, with strangers, with acquaintances, friendships, obviously. we interact with people all day. There's never really a moment where unless you're like me sitting at home in their office, you are interacting with people everywhere. And I think people really can get in their heads about like, how do I interact with this person in relationships of all kinds? And so I think it's an endlessly fascinating topic that people will always be curious about. People will always want to know, like, how do I have better relationships with my friends, with my family, with my romantic partner? And we need other people to survive. Like, we cannot exist by ourselves. It is not healthy. It is terrible for our minds, our bodies, our souls. So we need to rely on people. And if we can facilitate better conversations with them, relationships with them, that'll make our lives a little easier, a little bit more enjoyable. So that's primarily what I cover.
All right. How about this? How much do you think your own writing and your own like learning about these types of like different interactions, how's that affected your own personal life?
Oh my gosh, immensely. I like to use this example a lot because I think it really illustrates like how far I've come in my life. I remember I was laid off from my job in early 2017, and I had just started freelancing full time and just feeling like really insecure about my place in the world, was not getting a lot of work, had a lot of free time. And I had lived with my two really good friends at the time, and they moved out to go live with their boyfriends. And so I was trying to find two people to fill their rooms. And in that interim moment, I was living by myself and I was not interacting with anyone. And I was feeling so lonely and so down. And before I had ever read about research into loneliness and its effects, I was experiencing that. I was experiencing like super down moods. I was feeling physically sluggish. I was feeling so sleepy. And I just sort of had my guard up to the world. I just figured like nobody wants to talk to me. I don't want to talk to anybody. Nobody's reaching out to me. Like I have no value, no worth in this world. And I think about that moment a lot because it was sort of instrumental in how I approached my reporting from there on out, like learning about loneliness and learning about the importance of friendships and relationships. Made me realize like all of the things I was doing wrong as like a person in their early 20s trying to figure out where they are in the world. And so now anytime I feel myself like slipping into that mindset, like yesterday is a good example. I, had spent the day largely by myself, like really in the midst of writing. It's a very, very solitary pursuit. And my boyfriend was like, oh, I'm heading over my friends for some dinner. Like, do you want to join us? And my impulse was to say no because I'm like, oh, I'm tired. Like I could go to bed, not really feeling like interacting with people. But I know that like that's my body's cue to actually say yes. Loneliness is a cue similar to hunger, to thirst. When we're hungry, we know it's a cue to eat. When we're thirsty, we know it's a cue to drink water. When we are feeling lonely, it's a cue to interact with people, not to further isolate. So I was like, you know what? My body is telling me I need to interact with people. So I'm going to leave the house, even though I feel a little tired. It might be a little exhausting. But just knowing the research and knowing the benefits of social interaction and how our mind sort of plays tricks on us. And I can circumvent that now because I know like, okay, this is just my body trying to trick me into further isolating, and understanding that yes, social interaction of all kind requires an energy expenditure, but it's a worthy way to spend your time.
So would you say you initially approached the subject from like a place of desperation where you just felt like, oh, there's like I have no hope for the future and no one cares about my job prospects, no one cares about my sense of loneliness? Like, was that like the attitude you had when you first started out?
I don't know if it was so much desperation as it was self-centeredness. A lot of it is just feeling like, and that's what loneliness does, right? It sort of makes you really look internally and think like there's something wrong with me. I'm not doing something right. Like other people are not reacting to me well. It makes you sort of self-conscious. It makes you afraid to approach somebody because you're like, they're going to think I'm stupid. Like I'm dumb. There's a reason why nobody is reaching out to me. And I think it's really important to get ourselves like out of that self-consciousness. There's a lot of research showing that like people aren't thinking about you as much as you're thinking about yourself. People don't think you're being stupid if they talk to you on the subway.
The spotlight effect, basically.
Right. Like there's people are thinking about themselves in those sort of situations. Like, and like there's a lot of like really established research that shows like people like it when you talk to them, when you're talking to a stranger in a coffee shop. Like they're not thinking you're dumb. They are liking you more than you think. And I think that's really helpful to sort of keep reminding yourself. Like I think a lot of anxiety is about ourselves. And I don't want to diminish anyone who, you know, is experiencing anxiety, but I think to step out of ourselves a little bit takes away some of its power, you know, and just to realize that people don't think about us as much as we think. And it's kind of liberating.
Do you talk to like random strangers at the coffee shops that you like work at?
Oh yeah, all the time. It's my favorite thing to do. I was on a phone call, like talking about third places in a coffee shop last week. And then the woman next to me in the coffee shop struck up a conversation about third places because her friend had started like a supper club in Boston. And then we were talking about that. And it's so nice to feel like a part of your community. It's nice to feel that like people aren't strangers anymore, because now when I see her, we smile at each other, even though we don't know each other all that well. We've never hung out, but I know like, okay, this is an ally and I know that I can trust this person.
How do you know that those strangers aren't going to think of you as like being annoying or like intruding on your personal space? Like maybe that's part of the reason why so many people don't really want to talk to strangers, is because they feel like they're intruding on those people's personal space.
I think, again, that's like the devil on our shoulder talking, the anxiety. People like, of course, you want to be respectful. If someone's on the phone or like has their headphones in, like take a cue. You know, they probably don't want to be spoken to. But I think people welcome the interaction. We are getting not a lot of it. You know, we are sort of out of practice. And yeah, I think we need to stop being so worried about like whether you're going to like annoy somebody. I think the chances, you know, there's always a chance. Like there's a non-zero chance. But I can say personally, like 9 times out of 10, if somebody's talking to me like in a public space, like I'm not annoyed by it and I will engage with them. You just have to be respectful. It's all about like tact, of course. Like you're not going to just like approach somebody and ask them a very personal question. Or again, like if they're on the phone or wearing headphones, try to talk to them. Or if they're working and trying to start a conversation. But I think most people are receptive to it. And it's all about your mindset. Like you have to think like, this is not someone who's trying to scam me. This is not somebody who's trying to get something out of me. While those things might be true, I've definitely been approached in public places where someone's like asking you for money, but you realize like this is a person, this is someone with value. And to just completely like have your guard up against everybody, it does not only a disservice to yourself, it does a disservice to the other person, because how might they feel after that of like, oh, I took a chance here. I went out on a limb and tried to talk to this person and I got shut down. That feels pretty bad. And that might dissuade them from doing something similar in the future. And I don't think we should be doing that. Like, again, if people are being respectful of other people, I'd say it's fair game.
Do you think people wear headphones in public too often these days?
I mean, yeah, I think that doesn't so much have to do with like, don't talk to me, like let me put this in. I think it has to do with our like inability to sit with our thoughts and like just like be in silence sometimes. Like I think we always have to be entertaining ourselves, like music,
Well,
podcasts.
there's a difference between the intention behind why someone does it and like the effect that it has on other people. So maybe like your intention is just that like people can't sit with boredom as much as they used to, so they always have to be listening to something. But the effect that it has on other people is like, oh, I can't really strike up a conversation with these people in the park in the same way that I used to be able to.
Right, exactly. Like it does send a big signal. I did a piece on like dating IRL. People, you know, are getting really tired of dating apps, and a lot of people are like, well, how do I meet someone?
Which is what used to happen, like like that's what things were like even earlier this century. That's what things were like.
Oh yeah, like not even that long ago, but like people who came of age recently, like they like maybe all they know are dating apps. And yeah, like a lot of the advice I got from dating experts was like, you need to signal that you're open to talking to people. So like, don't wear headphones. Like, sure, maybe you can sit at a bar and read a book, but like be open to the fact that like people might want to talk to you, or to meet someone, somebody has to talk to you.
Yeah, and don't be afraid of don't be afraid of approaching people in public, and don't be afraid of being approached in public. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, like I think we've gotten to a place where people are very scared of other people. Like there's things all over the internet about like, like, oh, if a man comes up and talks to me, like that's bad. And like, again, it really comes down to like respect and intention. And like, there have definitely been times when like people approach you and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And like, I don't think we should be ignoring those gut feelings and ignoring our safety. But I think a lot of times, like people aren't trying to like hurt us, and if we just had a little bit more acceptance for people that we don't know, a lot of the problems that we found are like associated with the so-called loneliness epidemic might be less intense.
Maybe part of the reason why people are so afraid of approaching people in public, both in the context of dating and in the context of platonic friendships. Maybe the reason why people are afraid of just like cold approaching random strangers is, well, so a few reasons. One is like people wear headphones a lot more often, but maybe another reason is just like social trust is down. So like you mentioned the whole thing about like, you don't think we should be ignoring gut feelings of like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Maybe people's gut feelings, the idea that things don't feel right, some of that is like definitely warranted and should be listened to. But maybe the reason why people have those gut feelings, I would say more often these days, is sometimes just because social trust is down. Would you consider that reasonable?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We live in a world that has gamified safety. Like you see those videos on social media about like, here's what you should do if you're staying alone in a hotel, and all of the like basically booby trapping of like the hotel room to prevent someone from coming in. And that only reinforces this notion that like other people are out to get us, other people are bad and scary. And like that's so not the case at all. But
well, I would argue that sometimes it is the case because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy if everyone believes it. That's what I would say.
But also, I mean, like the more that you're primed to see danger somewhere, you will see danger. But it doesn't mean it's reality, Like your feelings doesn't reflect reality sometimes. You can feel scared. I see posts in a local Facebook group that I'm a member of all the time, and people see danger everywhere and they're afraid of going to certain neighborhoods. And like when you think that way, like you will start to see it. And I don't think people should be like ignoring like their safety, like absolutely be vigilant. But I think if you're looking for things that look suspicious, that look weird, if you're looking for proof that someone is trying to traffic you, it seems like it's everywhere. And like it's just the data just shows that like people are not being trafficked at the rates that I feel people are concerned with it.
Yeah, like you're afraid that if you walk down the street, you're going to be the victim of violent crime, or you're afraid that if someone like cold approaches you in public, that person is actually like a sexual predator, or like you're afraid that if you go to a hotel, that hotel will be filled with booby traps. Like, how warranted do you think those fears are?
I don't think they're very warranted. I think people maybe hear about stories and like that really it affects our perception of risk. When you hear a story or something has happened to you, that makes you feel like it's more likely. Like if you hear that your friend won the lottery, you think like, oh, that could happen to me if it happens to them. And I think it's the same thing. Like if you see these videos on TikTok of like, ladies, watch out, like this thing happened to me.
Oh yeah. Like I would rather be in the forest with a bear than a man. Like that sort of
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you're like constantly being fed those messages, you believe the perception of them is higher because stories really, really are very persuasive. But I think if you look at data about, how many bear attacks there are, or how many like people have been like attacked by a stranger in the woods, like you'd actually realize like the likelihood of that happening is fairly low. And I think spending a lot of time being really scared about those things just takes a lot of the joy out of life. Like you should be able to like explore your city because you want to. Like why live in a place if you are so scared of it or think that there's danger lurking around the corner? You're kind of sucking all of the fun out of life. And if your life is just vigilance and hypervigilance, that's a lot of energy spent just trying to protect yourself when that energy could be spent in other places.
I'm thinking part of the reason why I would say a lot of youngsters are afraid, and I do want to elaborate on this a little bit further, but maybe let's say that like earlier in the 20th century, like especially the 2000s and the 2010s, there were a lot of really, really terrible scandals that embroiled tons and tons of institutions. And these are the types of things that progressives wanted to spotlight, whether it be like scandals within like churches or scandals within like organizations or I don't know, like workplace harassment or whatever, where these are the sort of things where people wanted to like bring them into the spotlight for reasons that I do think were largely noble. But I do think that it's important to acknowledge that like even during the times when these are true, they're still like the minority of things, like they're still in the minority in terms of like how likely they are to happen to most people. And I think that the more you talk about them, the more you create fear and the more you create like social trust, and the more you create like people just inclined to always see like the devil in everyone that they talk to in a way that just maybe wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I talked to a researcher who is looking at like Gen Z's perception of risk and like found that by and large, like that generational cohort like sees more risk in the world. And a lot of it has to do with their media consumption, because if every time you open up your phone, read the news, like it's a plane crashing or like your spatula is toxic. And when you're constantly being fed those stories, like you do perceive there being more risky things around you. And it does make me really sad. Because like, and again, like as someone who's in the media, like there's a role to play here to not be sensational about these things because it has a real effect on people.
Do you think you could argue that progressives are partially responsible for like the current fear that like Gen Zers have, because they spend so much time, obviously they were well-intentioned, but they spend so much time talking about the perils and the foils of institutions in a way that led people growing up to sort of trust the world a lot less?
I mean, I hear those messages from the right these days of like the subway is scary, its cities are scary, and crime is everywhere. It's like stoking all of this fear that is like, frankly, like crime rates have been going down the last couple of years. And so the data just doesn't bear out some of these messages about like, yeah, like stay inside after dark, ladies, like it's dangerous living in a city. Yeah, like I think I've been hearing like a lot of those messaging, especially like leading up to last year's presidential election about like, look how bad crime has gotten.
Or look how bad the economy has gotten.
Right. I mean, it's all just messaging, right? Is like, it's like I said, stories matter a lot. And so it's the lens through which you are viewing things, and like your feelings are really what color your perception. And so like, I know it's not sexy to sort of like look up data and numbers on things, but like it can offer a more objective picture.
That's what I think is kind of fascinating about you. Like you're more willing to just strike up random conversations with strangers in public, or I guess from what you just said, I would guess that you're a lot more willing to just like walk through the city at night without fear. Like, are there times where like your friends sort of like question you about this, and like are they kind of confused about why you're doing it?
No. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are times when my friends are like, why are you talking to that person? Like, oh, just ignore them, like, whatever. But I have always been a person who's just found other people to be fascinating. And like, I want to hear what somebody has to say. Like, even if it is just like, you know, like complimenting my hair or like asking me for money, whatever. Like, I want to hear that person out. I want them to feel like they matter. Yeah. So some people are like, oh, you need to just like ignore people when they start talking to you, but not out of a place of like, oh, this is dangerous. But just like, oh, hurry it up. We've got places to be.
Yeah. Like, so did you, when you originally started doing all the things that you're currently doing, was there a fear of danger in the back of your mind?
Not entirely. I mean, like as a woman in the world, there's always a sort of lingering fear. Violence against women is and will always be like a huge issue. But I'm also a runner and have been a runner for a really long time. And like, of course, you have like parents saying like, okay, watch out when you're like running or don't run at night and, like have your phone on you. And so you hear those messages a lot. And so you learn to just, be vigilant about things. But yeah, like, again, like I just realized like people don't really care about me. Like people are not like out like looking for me and thinking like, oh, she's weak and I could take advantage of her in some way. At least I like that's my perception of things. And yeah, I don't think that there are bad actors out there. I mean, of course there are, but I don't think there are as many as people are thinking about. Like they're just like out waiting for prey.
Have you noticed a change in how much the people that you talk to, how much they trust their neighbors like over the past several years?
Yeah, I feel like for me personally, like I live on a block where like people have lived here for a long time and they know each other and they talk to each other. And I really like that. Like I'm like one of the newer people on the block. Like I bought my house a couple of years ago, but like my neighbor was like very quick to like show up, like introduce herself. And every time we see each other, like we chat, everyone says hi on the street. And so I feel like that sort of vibe maybe has been lost a little bit. But I don't know. Then I go to like my best friend's neighborhood. She lives on the other side of the city, and like her neighbors are the same way. It's like everyone's looking out for each other, and like she goes over her neighbor's house all the time for dinner. She'll just text them and be like, "What are you making me for dinner?" And like she'll go over there. And I think that's really, really beautiful, and that's like an aspect of community that I feel like people are yearning for. It just takes a little bit of work to do it. I remember during the pandemic, my best friend and I were roommates and we lived in an apartment building that I think maybe had like 6 units or so. But because of like we were all like sheltering in place and staying at home, like we would sometimes like text with the other like people in the building or be like what's going on? Like it wasn't like super common, but it was a nice way to like know these people who are living next to you. When you live in such close proximity with people, like I think we owe it to ourselves and to them to know who it is that we're living near. Because I mean, for even the most mundane things, like hey, like do you have paper towels? Like, can I have some paper towels? Or just like, oh, I'm on vacation and I'm getting this package. Like, can you grab it? I think it's like really important to sort of have those relationships. And especially if you are planting roots in a place, like you own your home, you're going to live there for a while. Like there's a study that found like we are more motivated to be more trustworthy to those people if we think we're going to have like a long-term relationship with them. We want to prove to them that we're trustworthy.
Like like infinitely repeating games compared to finitely repeating games in game theory.
I mean, I don't really know a lot about game theory, but I trust you know what you're talking about.
Yes, I hope at least one person in the audience understood that reference. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So it's like you want to prove to them that you're trustworthy and they want to prove to you, hopefully, that they're trustworthy. And so like that's what kind of like keeps the goodwill. Like you don't want to live next to somebody who you have problems with like for decades. Like that just doesn't make anything fun for anybody.
What are some things that you've learned that have helped you to have higher levels of social trust that you wish that you could tell members of Gen Z right now?
Yeah. What I really want to tell Gen Z right now is like, I commend you for like caring about your safety. I think that is really important, and I don't think you should ever stop that. But I think hypervigilance is not doing a lot of favors, because when you're hypervigilant, you see threats everywhere. You're constantly on the lookout for threats. And when you see them everywhere, you just distrust people. It's like that feedback loop. So I think, like, again, like, I don't think you need to totally like lower your standards of safety, but I think to just be a little more trusting of people, it's like you have to see them as a person. Like, they're just like you. And even if they look different than you, or a different age, like are in a neighborhood that you're not familiar with, like they're just as worthy as like being seen as you. And you would hope that like maybe if you were lost and needed directions somewhere, somebody would answer you, you know? And like, I've seen people who like have been approached by people in like downtown in the city, like someone's asking for directions and they've been ignored. And like, that's not to say like that person didn't trust them or they seemed dangerous, but like, think of how bad you would feel if you were in that scenario and like you're lost and you need help and nobody is helping you. So I think we just need to sort of see the humanity in people. Like, always trust your gut, but like, I think we need to give people more chances.
What are some times, are there times where you've like asked some random stranger for something, whether it be for directions or advice or anything related to relationships, and then you were brushed off and it made you feel very bad?
I feel like, I mean, I've definitely come across this in my reporting when I was doing like approaching people on the street at like a parade or something, like asking for a quote. And like some people, yeah, they literally will just not look at you, even if you're just like, hey, sorry to bother you. And like, yeah, like they just act like you're not there. And you're just like, oh, like this feels really bad.
maybe they were afraid of you. How would that make you feel if you knew they ignored you because they were afraid of you?
I would think it probably didn't really have anything to do with me. I hope. I think it would probably just have to do with their own like beliefs, and like they maybe in the past have like been burned by somebody in a similar way. Yeah, because I mean, my goal in life is to not like intimidate anybody that I'm trying to talk to, and I like to think I'm a fairly like non-threatening looking person. So yeah, I would hope it like wasn't me that scared them, and just maybe things from their past.
But yeah, did it have an adverse effect on you when you tried approaching these people and they brushed you off?
Oh no, not at all. Like I feel like I used to be a lot more like just like the way that my life is now. Like, I'm in my 30s now and I'm not like going to shows and bars as often, but like when I was in my 20s, like I would just love approaching people and just being like, I love your shirt. And there was one time when like I thought I was being like funny and like approached somebody. I was like, I love your shirt. Like, it looks like you got it from Boscov's. And like clearly they took that as an insult and they were just like, ugh, and just like, you know, removed themselves. And like, again, like I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely something I said. Like, this was 100% on me. But like, you kind of like have to learn to not like have your self-worth wrapped up in it, because like they probably forgot. They probably do not think of that. I years later still do, because it was like, why did I say that? But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I've never seen this person again. So like, really, what does it matter?
Yeah, okay. So maybe so just last thing on this topic. Maybe there are times where we just like cold approach random strangers, and then if they brush you off, a lot of the time it has nothing to do with what you said or how you said it. It just has to do with their experiences that you'll never know. But maybe that means that a lot of the time it wasn't your fault.
Yeah. Like, again, if you are genuinely like trying to go into this interaction with curiosity, not trying to like be like, hey baby, like let me buy you a drink. Like, people tend to not really react to that well. You just have to like have a genuine interest in what you are trying to talk to this person about. Like, like, oh my gosh, what are you reading? Or like if you're sitting next to somebody, like you're both eating alone at the bar, like, oh, what did you order? That looks really good. Like just like a genuine interest in somebody, or like, I love that shirt. Like I also love that band. Like it's really easy to not offend people. Like, and I know people can get in their heads about it. But if you think it's borderline creepy, it probably is.
Yeah, but okay, so do you have any kind of marker for understanding, either from your own personal experience or from the data, like what types of societies tend to have higher levels of social trust than others?
I don't really think I know the answer. I don't think I would be the best person to answer that.
Yeah. All right, then let me go back to the previous topic, because I do want to try pushing you more, just for the sake, just to continue to make this conversation interesting. You know how you mentioned, like, if I think it's borderline creepy, maybe it is. All right, how about this? You know how a lot of the time, if a country has like much less of a monoculture, it tends to be like more heterogeneous. It takes more effort to try to make sure that social trust, like there are higher levels of social trust within that society. Maybe maybe a lot of the time, whether or not you come across as borderline creepy has nothing to do with like what you said or how you said it, but just the fact that you look different from the people that you're talking to, either because you're a specific gender or you're a specific race, that is like often coded as more creepy than like other demographics, even if that isn't your fault. Do you think that's possible?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, people have their biases, whether implicit or not, that definitely color how they interact with other people. And especially so if they had a past experience with somebody, like say like, a man approached them on the street and it was like not a good experience. They're going to take that information and take that into the future of like, oh, everybody of this like demographic is like, I'm not going to have a good experience with them. Like, absolutely, that plays a role.
Yeah, so maybe some people have implicit biases of like, oh, if someone belongs to this specific race or if someone belongs to this specific gender, then like your brain is more like hardwired to just like instinctively think of them as creepy, even if they didn't say or do anything creepy.
Right. And I would challenge people to sort of buck against those biases, like why do you have them? Why are you so wary of people like that? I think it's important to challenge ourselves.
Yeah. All right. Do you think, what do you think are could you talk a little bit more about some of the consequences of like lower levels of social trust?
Yeah, well, I mean, we need to trust people in every aspect of our lives, like you need to trust that like your partner's going to come home from work every day, or like trust
that they're not having an affair, that they're not like embezzling your money.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like that your financial planner is not embezzling your money, that like when you show up to the restaurant with your friends, that they're going to be there. And so like, I think people like to say like, oh, I don't trust anybody, as like sort of a sign of strength. And like, that's just not the case at all. Like when we're children, we inherently trust that our parents will take care of us. And when they don't, like in instances of like neglect, like that really impacts like how that child grows up, because you begin to sense distrust around people. Distrust is learned. We learn from past experiences, like, oh, when I need help, this person isn't here for me. But we're all sort of like, we have this ability to trust, and we need to trust other people, because how would you get anything done? Like you and I both trusted that we were going to show up to this Zoom on time, and that, I was hopefully going to give something entertaining to you. And
I like, neither of us were using this as an example, like as an excuse to scam the other person and steal their bank account information.
Right, exactly. Like, and a lot of times, like, and I'm sure you can agree that like you just email people that don't know you, and like they have to trust that like I'm going to be respectful of their time and not make them look like an idiot. Like there's just so much trust in every relationship. And so I think without it, like you just cannot get anything done.
Yeah, I cold emailed you and you needed to trust that I was not some kind of fraud that was just trying to steal your personal info. Yeah.
Right. Or not even that, because like I trust myself enough to not like give that out. But it's like that, like, yeah, like that this is going to be a worthy use of my time, and that like you weren't gonna like be mean to me, which I don't think I would think that about anyone.
Yeah, regardless of their gender or their race. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But that does make me wonder, because like I did a preamble before we started the official conversation where I was just like, how do I make this interesting? How do I make this not boring? But that sort of ties into something that you said, like it's very easy for someone to say, I don't trust anyone. And like that's coded as smart. Like cynicism is often perceived as intelligent these days, or it's like seen as like you have your finger on the pulse. So like maybe the problem with these types of conversations is that like they're fundamentally like good natured and optimistic in a way that's like, on the one hand, it's very good for us to hear it, but maybe like we are hardwired to see danger where it doesn't exist, because like that just comes across as more interesting to us. Like if the two of us are just talking about how it's better to just trust the rest of the world, maybe a lot of people are just going to tune out because it's too boring compared to if we were to say that there's danger lurking around in every corner. Most people would rather watch like a very exciting TV show about how danger is lurking around every corner, rather than a show where like the characters have no conflict and everything just turns out fine. It's just like less interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's the dramatic tension. Like I remember like a screenwriting class in college. Like there needs to be conflict in every scene. I mean that stuff is great for movies and TV, but sometimes life is much more boring.
Yeah. And maybe we're so interested in life not being boring that maybe it ends up hardwiring our brain and causes us to see the quote unquote interesting thing, which is danger, even if the danger doesn't actually exist. Yeah. There's one quote that you wrote in your article that I also thought was interesting. Despite ranking highly in financial security, countries like the US and Germany fall behind in areas like close relationships, meaning, and purpose. Meanwhile, societal emphasis on individualism may make young people less inclined to engage with and support their neighbors and peers. Would you consider it accurate to say that the US has lower levels of social trust because, as a country, Americans are much more individualistic than other first world countries?
I mean, it certainly plays a role. Like America is an incredibly individualistic place. And so if you think like, okay, well, I'm responsible for my own happiness, success, then why do I need other people? And therefore, like, oh, if they can't do it themselves, like they must be trying to get something out of me. And I think I saw, it might have been in Pew, like the top reasons that people believed social trust was down was sort of that nature of like people are like, they're not, let me see if I can find it. Okay. So among those who think interpersonal trust has declined, they cite like people are more isolated, lonely, and out for themselves. Like that was one of like the top reasons why people think trust is down. And that really speaks to individualism. Like if you just think everybody's out for themselves, then inherently anyone who needs something from you is trying to get something from you, or they have bad intentions. And that's the thing with...
Everyone is competing with each other in a zero-sum market, essentially.
Right. And like that's the thing with trust is like your intentions. Like we will never know somebody's intentions unless like we ask. But when it comes to like when that trust is breached, we tend to either jump to one of two conclusions: that the person did it because they're incompetent or out of malice, basically. So like, oh, they, like my coworker didn't do that thing that they said they were going to do because they're stupid, or like because they're trying to undermine me. Like those are the two like big reasons we tend to like attribute the lack of trust to. But like we don't really know, like the truth is like often a lot more gray than that. But like, yeah, like if you again like think that my success is only inherent upon my efforts and I don't need other people, I think you're much more likely to assume ill intent of other people.
So what do you think, like, so you mentioned that you've lived in societies that, or at least like cities that tend to have higher levels of social trust. So like, Are there any specific attributes like where you live or in the communities that you've been in or experienced that cause people to trust each other and not see it as like this is always a zero-sum competition between the people that I'm talking to?
I mean, I think in cities where people like live a lot closer, there is this sense maybe that like we need each other to like get things done. And I think there's like that collaborativeness, like because that's like inherent in trust. Like to be able to collaborate with people, like you need to trust them. And that's not saying that like you need to completely trust them. I've been watching a lot of Survivor lately. Like I love Survivor, and like trust is the word that comes up so often. Like anytime they want to get something done in that game, i.e. vote somebody out, they have to work together. And so there's like an element of trust to that.
They're working together to work against someone else.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a game. Like you're playing for $1 million, and so there's inherently no trust. But at the end of the day, like if you want to get further, if you want to get more things done, you need to have people trust you.
Yeah, until the next week when you backstab the person that trusted you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. This is a tangentially related topic. Do you notice that, like, there's like a truism that it becomes a lot harder to interact with people after you graduate from university?
I don't know. I mean, at least for myself, I would say the opposite is probably true. I commuted to college, like I didn't live on campus, and I think like I just through that like interacted with a lot fewer people than people usually do. Like people, develop these really deep and sprawling friend groups at college, and like I just didn't have that experience. Like I certainly had friends, but it wasn't like we're with each other all the time, because I was like, I got class and I'm going home. Like I'm not hanging out here. So I mean, I'm sure for other people, like their response might be different, but I've always been very intentional about like cultivating my social network in adulthood as well. But I think that's sort of rare because like I report on this stuff and I think about it a lot. And I think it is true for a lot of people, because college is a place where you are around people all the time and you are around them for a long period of time. And for me, what I found is like the basis of friendship is putting in like those hours, that time together. And so when you are not in an environment that makes it conducive to spending lots and lots of time together, it is harder to make friends.
All right, I can think of two questions that are like an outgrowth of that. So the first question is, let's say that someone is in their 20s and they're looking for ways to interact more, or they're just like suffering through the friendship recession that everyone is having, like both men and like women. I think especially men, but definitely everyone is a lot lonelier than they used to be, and that's obviously a bad thing. And like we as a society have become a lot more sequestered off and a lot more willing to go on our phones rather than talk to people outside. What is some advice that you might have to people that do feel a lot lonelier right now and do want to start like making more friends and all that really cheesy advice that's still genuinely important? Yeah.
There was a study that sort of like foundationally changed the way that I think about friendships. I think it came out in 2018. The researcher, his name is Jeffrey Hall. Like he's amazing. I talked to him a bunch. But basically, he found that it takes 200 hours of time spent with somebody to consider them a close friend, like a really good friend. And so that is a significant time investment. And again, like we mentioned, like in school, it's a lot easier to get to that threshold of time. So what I try to tell people is like, how will you get time with people in adulthood? And that really requires intentionality. Like, so if you work with somebody in an office, like you're going to get those hours in pretty quickly because it's a similar vibe as school. Like you're around somebody. So like look to your coworkers if there's anybody you think you might jive with. Like I made really good friends from work because we were around each other all day, every day. And so it made like, oh, hey, do you want to go grab lunch? Do you want to go grab a drink after work? That's super easy. Something else that is important is to think about your routines. Like, again, to get that time. People tend to make friends at the gym because they know I'm going to take this class the same day every week, and the same people are going to be there. And it's a similar thing. Once you start to like accrue that time with people, you get more comfortable and you're like, hey, like, let's go grab a coffee after class. I know a lot of people who have made friends that way. And then once you like sort of have these new connections, again, make it a regular thing. Maybe you watch a movie together like once a week, or, you know, you love restaurants in your city and you try a different restaurant like once a month. You have to make it a regular thing. Like anything you can do to start accruing those 200 hours, you need to do it. You need to be intentional about it, and it needs to be a regular thing. You can't let it go like 2 months and expect like to fall back into place, especially with somebody you don't really know all that well. Like and it is going to be exhausting. I think if we counter our expectations of like, oh, this is going to be so easy and effortless, like it's not at first. Like it's the same thing as dating, where you're like, oh, I'm having fun, but I feel tired. Like this is an energy intensive experience. But as you grow more comfortable with somebody, that's what lowers the energy expenditure. So you have to put in a lot of that effort up front to get to that place of ease with somebody.
All right. Final question. So let's say that there are, I don't know, maybe there are people listening that are couch potatoes, but maybe this conversation has inspired them to maybe like strike up a conversation with a stranger or start making friends in places that they previously were afraid to do it. Maybe they spend too much time like on TikTok thinking that they would prefer to be like with a bear in the woods than with someone else. And like maybe let's say that they genuinely want to start interacting with strangers. They just don't know where to start, and they're kind of afraid. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, start small. Like you don't need to jump into like a huge conversation with somebody that you don't know. This one researcher from the UK, her name's Gillian Sandstrom, like does a bunch of research about talking with strangers, and it's about like just like asking like a targeted question in a way that's like very specific but not like threatening. Like I think she might have used an example one time of like she was walking past a guy who was like selling hot dogs, and she was just like, why are you selling hot dogs? And like you can literally just ask like the smallest of questions. But again, like make sure that like they're respectful. And like, again, like if you see someone wearing a baseball hat of like your favorite team, like start talking about the team. Like, oh my God.
Or if they have really cool sunglasses, then you can say, right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just about like, because if you just say like, you're beautiful, like, no, but like, you can't really respond to that. Like that, and that might creep people out. But if you're just like, I love your shoes, where did you get them? Like that kind of opens the door for more conversation.
Yeah, I guess maybe one thing I'll add is like, don't be afraid if you made mistakes, or if you said something and then you just think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Because like when you're first starting out, there are so many different ways that your mind can convince yourself not to do it. So like obviously these ideas about what you should do or what you shouldn't do, they're definitely helpful, but don't just like always use that as an excuse to be like, oh, maybe I will say the wrong thing, or I have said the wrong thing, and that's a sign that I should never do it again. Mm-hmm. Because everyone makes mistakes in these regards.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people are like, again, they're not thinking about like, oh, how weird you are. They're thinking about like, oh, this was a great interaction. And like, you could also be a little self-depreciating of like, oh my God, I'm so sorry to eavesdrop, but like, I heard you talking about Survivor. I also love Survivor. Like, you could just like poke fun at yourself a little bit too. It takes some of the pressure off. Like, I've definitely done that.
Allie Volpe, thank you so much for taking the time to come onto this podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to hear more, make sure to follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else that you get your podcasts from. Until next time, goodbye.